Welcome to Strength by Chase. This is my first video series that I'm doing on the channel, and that's the road to a 225-pound bench press. So if you're interested in watching my journey going from my current best bench press weight to 225, make sure to like and subscribe. You guys know how the algorithm is. Really helps support the channel. In this video, I'm going to go over what is a PR, what does it stand for, what does it mean, why am I doing this, what's my motivation, my plan, because it's going to be a pretty unconventional plan, and the actual week 0 testing and what it's like to go through and test a 1 rep max. You know, this has been a goal of mine since I've pretty much have started lifting weights. I've been lifting weights for over 10 years and, you know, it just finally felt right. So I'm going to document my process, let everyone kind of see what it's like. I don't see a lot of women bench pressing really online and or really documenting their journey. So I'm really excited to show you what it's like for a female body to do that, because it is a little bit different than how men's bodies typically do it, or even bodies with a lot more testosterone. I wanted to start off by explaining what is a PR and what does it stand for, what does it mean, because if you're new to weightlifting or if you're not really into heavy lifting, that might be a bit confusing for you. A lot of times success in the weightlifting world is measured by your PR, which is a personal record, or how much weight can you lift for a single rep. So you often hear folks say their 1 rep max. Well, that is what is the maximum weight they can lift for one single repetition. So oftentimes you measure that in plates or in 45-pound weights that look like a giant plate. You know, when I first got into weightlifting, I was really, really hyper fixated on lifting as maximal weight as possible. And while it's fun to do those things and have those goals, I found it to actually be very unhealthy for myself, both mentally and emotionally. Don't get me wrong, it was a ton of fun, but I really wasn't taking care of my joints, and I never gave any injuries I had fully time to recover. So this feels like a good time. My injuries are pretty much all healed up, and I'm excited to take you through kind of what it's like to go from point A to point B when increasing the maximum weight you can lift for a single rep max. So why am I doing this to begin with? Well, about 6 months ago, a bunch of dudes at my work were comparing their PRs, again, a personal record. And this is often what gym bros use to brag to other people about how strong they are. And I was the only girl in the area. And of course, no one asked me what my bench press was. So as they were going through it, at a good point, I chimed in and I said, wow, no one's even going to ask me what my bench press max is or what my PR is. And everyone kind of paused and like looked. And really the response from my boss at that point was all the motivation I needed to want to make this my goal and make 225 pounds my goal. So, you know, once he found out what my max was, he said, I've never seen a woman bench more than 135 pounds. I've never seen a woman bench more than 135 pounds. There's no way, there's no way you did that. So I was able to whip out my phone and show him my latest PR taken, which I'll show you here, was back in June of 2022. And the max weight here was 190 pounds for a single rep. At the time when I hit this, I was stoked. I'm still really proud of myself for it. But at the time, I started working at a new gym and my schedule got really hectic and it was really difficult to keep up my progress. Plus, I was dealing with an old shoulder injury that I really never took time to heal and properly rehab. So it was kind of just a naturally good time to cool off and the heavy weights, and I really started to focus on my mobility at that point. 2 years have pretty much gone by, and when I had that conversation with my boss, that gave me all the new motivation again to get back to heavy lifting. And I really just spent the last 6 months getting into a regular lifting routine of my own. My motivation now, to summarize, is definitely to really further impress all these gym bros who I work with, who really mean nothing. But at the same time, all of these kind of personal records are for myself. I know that I can do it. The bench press is my favorite lift. Wanted to jump in real quick here. As I edit this, it's not my motivation for this goal is not to impress gym bros who have zero meaning to me. Yes, it kind of is, but it's also to show women can lift strong too. You don't have to just be a man to lift heavy weights and be impressive. So ultimately, yeah, I want to be strong as fuck, and that's my motivation for reaching this goal or aiming for this goal. But the reality is whether it's impressive to these bros or not, it doesn't really matter. I am doing this for me and for everyone else who wants to feel empowered and also see that women can take up space in the gym too. Okay, so what is my plan? Well, my plan is that I don't actually have a plan. And while that might seem strange to some folks, my plan is quite unconventional and it's going to be something that works for me. And I think that's important that we talk about that more as trainers and just people who work out, that not every lifting program or workout program is best for everybody, and there's a lot of traditional methods that don't work for folks. If you've ever listened to my podcast, then you'll know, or if you've heard me talk, I do have ADHD, so while I don't like that to be my entire personality, it does impact my life in certain ways. And one of those ways is that I really get bored from following a plan every single time. My job all day requires me to take people through a plan for the full hour after hour. And so when I follow or take somebody through a workout, by the end of the day, when it's time for me to work out, the last thing I want to do is like follow a written program. Don't ask me, it's just how my brain works. And so I found that when I started lifting again, I didn't like writing out a program ahead of time and then following that. I found more joy and engagement and consistency with just doing what feels right at the moment. Like I mentioned, I have been lifting and working out for over 10 years, and I've been a trainer for almost 4 or 5 years now. So I'm pretty familiar with programming and the ideal way to train to reach a goal. So, I've kind of just gone through intuitively, and that's how I actually intend to do this, is a more intuitive approach. I do plan to follow some guidelines that typically work for a goal like this, where your intention and your goal is to increase the total number or increase the weight you've used. So there are a few powerlifting guidelines that I plan to instill in that way, but other than that, I actually don't plan to do the same workout twice unless it just like feels really good. I'll definitely be following a few exercises that will come up pretty regularly because I really enjoy doing them right now. But again, with kind of how my brain works, that will not likely stay the case. And I'm excited to document that for you all to kind of give you some inspiration and or representation for what it's actually like and what's realistic to lift and work out with ADHD, I guess. My plan and my goal is to get at least 3 days of lifting in per week. This is in addition to me juggling the soccer that I play recreationally on the weekend. That does get me pretty tired. I'm not a big cardio fan, so doing 40 minutes of cardio on the weekends does fatigue me, and that is something I want to kind of juggle and manage while trying to do something of this intensity. My goal in my plan is to hit bench at least once per week and then include at least one heavy bench press alternative exercise to complement that. Lately for me, it's been weighted push-ups. I know not everybody can do those, but for me, that's been a lot of fun. I really enjoy it, and I've liked seeing my repetitions increase with the same amount of weight on my back. The days I do feel like bench pressing, or the weeks that I do get bench press in, I plan to follow this common powerlifting strategy. So you'll see kind of this rep scheme that I plan to do and see where that gets me after I kind of follow that and retest. I don't have an exact timeline for a goal like this, and as a trainer, that's actually probably not a best practice. But again, for the situation at hand, for me, having a strict timeline is actually going to be more detrimental because I'm going to be too fixated on that deadline and making sure I get it done in time, and it's going to make me be unhealthy in other ways. So this sounds silly and this may sound extreme, but I'm going to set a timeline for myself for a whole year. So this is going to be a long journey, so make sure to like and subscribe so you can see what it's like to take this through. If I reach the goal before that, then that's going to be exciting, but I don't suspect myself to reach that within a year or less than a year. I do plan to retest my 1 rep max every 6 months. I might retest every 3 because the scheme that I put up on earlier is a little bit shorter. I think it's like a 10 or 12 week rep scheme. So I will probably retest there, but definitely every 6 months or definitely not any sooner than those 6 months. This also will just help me to see if I'm on track or not. Again, just trying to juggle, making sure that I'm not obsessively doing everything I can to reach this goal, because this goal it's just for personal gratification at this point. One key thing I also want to talk about is the fact that I'm not going to weigh myself in this entire journey. A lot of people weigh themselves at this weight. I could do this much weight. You know, when I weighed this much, I was pressing this much. And for me, knowing my weight, again, it's just not like a healthy option. I get really obsessed with the foods I eat, and my training just really spins unhealthy. And so that's not what I'm going to do. Food, speaking of, my plan with food is really to just eat. The goal is fed is best. You hear me say that all the time with clients and just even on the podcast. But for me, if I try to set macros and targets, it's going to get very unhealthy. You might have heard of orthorexia. That is definitely something I struggled with, and it's not really something that people talk about because they think eating healthy can't be an eating disorder. So fed is best, and my goal is to just eat and make sure when I'm feeling hungry that I feed myself with whatever I have. Definitely I want to be mindful of my protein intake, but again, I'm not going to be tracking or anything like that. Okay, PR testing. So let's get into the setup and how I like to set up my testing. It is a little custom, so each person does it a little different, but you know, with training, I definitely take most of my clients through the same routine and strategy when it comes to that as their goal. And if we are doing some one rep max testing, there we go. So, you know, just with any goal, and I know you folks might be wondering, we've gotten this far in the video, what is my current max? What is my current PR? So here's where we get into it. I didn't know what my current PR was going to be before testing. So obviously, you know, to reach a goal, you do have to figure out where you're currently at. So at this point, I have not done any near max testing. In fact, I really haven't benched more than like 5 or 6 reps at 135 pounds. So for maybe like a few sets. And so I really, going into this, had absolutely no idea where I was going to land. My expectations were quite low. And that's actually reflected in my testing. So there's typically a strategy you want to approach when testing your 1 rep max. You want to try and get as close to your estimated maximal weight, and then slowly add weight to kind of push past that and reach a new goal without tiring yourself out prematurely. My setup this testing day was actually not the most ideal food wise. I like to eat around 2 hours before my lift, but work that day got a little hectic and I only had a small snack about 3 hours before I did this testing. So typically I don't take a pre-workout or any kind of stimulants before the workout, but for this, since I knew I didn't really eat that well, I had a few sips of an energy drink about an hour before the lift. So I was really mindful to have maybe like a quarter of a cup total, because I want to keep the testing conditions the same for when I retest and make sure I take the same thing, because that could easily skew my results one way or the other. Now, the actual testing. So I always start with the empty bar and make sure the equipment is set up how I want. Since I knew I could do 135, I warmed up with 115 pounds, did a few reps, and then put 135 pounds on the bar and did a few reps. Again, at this point, I had no clue how much I was going to do, so I really hadn't even gone above like 140, so I put 145 pounds on, and at that point, this actually felt really good, and this rep looked really good. From there, I went on to put 155 pounds, and 2 reps again felt really good. So at this point, I was pretty shocked, and I knew I needed to make a bigger jump to go a little bit heavier, so I didn't waste energy doing lighter weights that I knew I was going to hit. At this point, I put on 170 pounds on the bar, and again, that actually moved surprisingly well. So at this point, I put 175 on, make sure the safety arms are up because I didn't have a spot, and obviously you don't want to drop the bar on you. That hurts. I've done it before. So once the safeties are up, I go ahead and put 180 on the bar, and at this point I'm nervous. I'm definitely thinking this has got to be the max. This is pretty close. to probably the heaviest I'm going to go today, but you'll see I did hit it for a single. So while I am testing, I am a little superstitious. I don't know if everyone else does this or if it's just me, but I do this thing where I don't actually calculate the weight in my head as I do it. I just kind of put weights on intuitively, 5, 10, 2.5, somewhere in that range, and just put them on. Because if I know the number ahead of time, I get in my head and I'm just, it's not going to be good. So I just like putting it on, see if I can do it. So at this point, I don't actually know how much weight is on the bar, but I get 185 on, and I already know what that weight is when you do a plate, a 45 and a 25, or also known as a plate and a half. So I already knew that was 185. And once I put it on and got it, I was shocked. I was pretty stoked. Now, we are definitely getting to the end here, so I get 190 loaded onto the bar, and you'll notice it does move. I get it. It's not that smooth, but got it. Definitely got it clean. So at this point, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is wild. So I do try 195 next, and you'll notice that I don't actually get it, which is fine. That's how you know your max, is that you try that one and fail out. The interesting part though that I want to note is, had I maybe started a little heavier and had energy by the time I got to 195, I have a feeling I actually probably could have got it. You'll notice there's a lot of sitting and waiting between the sets. It had been about 40 minutes since I had started with the empty bar until now. So at this point, I was just hungry. Like I was running out of fuel. But I think knowing that, that's going to make it a lot easier when I retest, kind of push myself or put myself a little closer to that max and then go from there. All right, and so that pretty much wraps up the first video in the series of Road to a 225-pound bench press. Again, if you all made it to the end of the video and you really liked it, or you want to support my channel, Strength by Chase, make sure to like and subscribe so the algorithm can do its thing and I can get more followers and build the channel out. Stay tuned. The next video is going to be basically week 1 workouts, and I'll take you through what that looks like. All right, we'll see you in the next one.